So then lads, back with another video. I did my A-level exams in 2024 and I'm going to be ranking all the ones I did from worst to best. If you don't live in the UK and you don't know what A-levels are, basically when you're like 16 to 18 between secondary school and college or university as we call it, you can do things like apprenticeships or college courses. If you really hate yourself like me, you can do A-levels, which is like the hardest things you do really. If you ask some people, I'm not sure. I'd probably rather be doing this than some back-breaking apprenticeship. But anyway, yeah, I did my A levels at sixth form, and I'm gonna be ranking these exams. Context: the exams I did were maths with Edexcel, physics with OCR, and computer science with AQA. Physics was OCR8 to be specific, and yeah, I'll be ranking them from worst to best. And when I say worst, I just mean hardest. When I said best, I mean easiest, and I'm incredibly biased. For context, I did most of my exams in my school's main sports hall, and they were reasonably spread apart from Physics 1, which was my first exam and separated from the rest by half term, so that might affect my results. You never know. So yeah, let's get into the ranking. So in 8th place out of my 8 exams, the worst one was easily Computer Science Paper 1, QA. That was, if I remember correctly, might have been the third exam I did. I'm not quite sure. This one was not on the main hall like the rest. It was in a computer room because basically, the exam works. Part of it's theory and part of it is coding. And basically, this one was just dog shit. It managed to be the exact content I was slightly weak on. Pretty much nothing I revised was on it. No Turing machines, barely any algorithms, no finite state machines. It was just bullshit with data structures, and classes and shit like that. I think section B, where you make a program, was alright. I liked section D as well. So section C, we answer questions about the skeleton program, which is like a program you get given at the start of year 13. But section D, we have to edit the skeleton program, and section A, which is about theory, that they were just terrible. And despite having extra time because of having dyspraxia, I still managed to not finish it. A lot of people in my class share the sentiment that this was just the worst test that I did. So at number 7, the second worst test I did was a physics paper 1. That was the first test I did, and yeah, easily the second worst. So yeah, similarly to the computer science paper 1, it somehow managed to be the exact content I was slightly weak on. There was quite a few bullshit questions, like I didn't like the 6 markers. There was one on transformers. Another was on the diffraction grating practical, which was the only practical that wasn't in the booklet of all the practicals my teachers had given me and made me memorize. Multiple choice section was okay. I spent like half an hour on the one about the car speeding up. The rest of it was just okay. I guess there's not really much more to say about it. I had a really bad feeling after that test, but my hopes were slightly raised after the rest of them, I guess. So next on our list is the first exam I mentioned in this video, which was like actually good and I don't think was bad, and that was the 6th, aka third last one I did, which was physics paper 3. It was the last physics paper I did. Compared to the first one, definitely, it was a big improvement. Because the exploring paper doesn't have a multiple choice section, I couldn't really do that. I almost ran out of time, but managed to get it done at the last minute. The first question I think was really odd. I noticed a mistake in that and had to correct it last minute. I wasn't too big of a fan of the 6 markers in this one. I thought they were just a little annoying. One complaint I have about this was that it was just too much theory stuff, really, not enough maths, which is why I'm more good at it in terms of the physics papers. Surprisingly, people in my class thought it was the other way around. They didn't like how much maths there wasn't enough theory. One thing I noticed about this paper is it had a weird obsession with frequency. Like pretty much every question in the second half involved frequency some way or another. I quite like the last question though, which was I believe was about wavelength spectral emission. I'm not sure. I'm kind of forgetting these tests already, but overall this was an okay paper. Okay, so coming in at 5th place is the last of the physics papers. That's right. We had all the physics papers in the row, but in my opinion, the best physics paper was paper 2 because it's just all round okay, you know. The 6 markers I think were alright. The multiple choice section was fairly easy. There was quite a few random 1 markers I didn't like too much, but overall it was definitely the best out of the physics papers. From what I've heard, AQA physics paper 2 was an absolute nightmare, but hey, I'm glad I'm not doing AQA. This one I didn't actually do in the main sports hall. We were in the library for some reason. That didn't make much of a difference. I think around this was an okay paper. It was a lot closer to the physics past papers I did, because yeah, paper 1 physics definitely wasn't anything like the past papers. It was just pretty chill. I think it was might have been the third or something paper exam I did overall, and just definitely a nice contrast to paper 1. Coming in at 4th place is, people might be surprised I put it in this, it's going to be maths paper 1, our first maths paper on the list. It was also the first maths paper I did, I believe it was the second exam, yep. And I was absolutely dreading this. Like, in every mock I've had so far, pure has always been like my worst exam, particularly pure 1, because this paper was pure after all. And honestly, in most mocks, like at least half the questions, I just don't know how to do them. But this one was just such a relief compared to what I'm doing. Like before this, I'd done like pretty much every paper 1 past paper, because for context, I did fuck all revision in my A levels until like a month before the exams. But after revising, honestly, this went way better than I expected. There were only like 2 questions that I just couldn't figure out. Those being the really nasty integration question and the one where you have to find the area of the semicircle-like shape. I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah, this paper I think was pretty chill. First part of it, definitely. The last part had a few challenging questions, but overall, it was pretty enjoyable, to be totally honest. Like, it was such a big relief having this paper as well. Like, I had it in my head that Pure was going to be absolutely horrible this year, but this paper gave me a much needed confidence boost and really helped me carry on through the rest of my exams. Alright, we're on the podium now. So now we're going to 3rd place, which is, a lot of people will disagree with me. A lot of people, my school, even the really smart people, seem to really hate this paper. But I think, honestly, in 3rd place, it goes to Maths Paper 2. It's pretty controversial to say putting this ahead of Maths Paper 1. A lot of people didn't like Pure Paper 2, but I think after Pure Paper 1, I was definitely a lot less worried in terms of Pure. Like, I was still pretty nervous for Paper 2. I had it in my head that it's going to be fairly difficult, but not as difficult as I'd thought before the exams, just because of how forgiving Paper 1 was. In my opinion, Paper 2 took everything Paper 1 did and just made it a lot better, a lot more forgiving. Like, I mentioned earlier that usually in pure marks, I just didn't know how to do half the questions. Generally speaking, in this paper, the only question I should have didn't know how to do was the one where you have 2 circles intersecting and you're supposed to work out the radius of one of them. Other than that, I quite like this. Like, I had been completely blessed in the sense that all the topics that I was strong on came up on this paper. It's probably one of the best I've ever done on a Maths Pure paper. There was a few questions at the start that I was kind of iffy about it, but even like the 10, 12 markers towards the end, which I normally run out of time for, were really forgiving in this one. And I got time to get pretty much everything done, and it was pretty enjoyable as well. Like, I just had fun in it while doing this. Didn't run out of time, managed to finish pretty much just in time. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this one. Okay, now we're looking at the top 2. I'd say the second best out of all the papers I did was definitely Computer Science Paper 2. It's a big jump in the list from Paper 1. Honestly, Paper 2 was so good, it makes up for how dog shit Paper 1 was. The way Paper 2 works is that there's no coding part, it's purely theory. For this paper, we were supposed to be in the hall, but at the last minute, we were told that our exam was moved to a teacher conference room. Really, to say, it was definitely very unique from all the past papers I did, but I had done a lot of like revision beforehand because I was reading this paper a lot. But honestly, it was so much better than I expected. Like, and there's things like the TCP stack or whatever for the 12 mark was pretty nice, although it had definitely some weird requirements for the questions, like we're only meant to talk about the network and not the receiving computer, even though you can't really do that. I like the 6 marker on ethical, legal, and cultural impacts. I remember the question about the storage size on a camera as well. I quite liked that one, but I kept getting it wrong and only got it right in the last minute. Like, literally the last few minutes of the test, I went over it again and saw one that I'd missed right towards the end. See, yeah, there's quite a few, most of the fact questions I got right, most of the maths questions I got right. The only one I didn't know how to do was the one about we have to calculate the storage size of a computer given like its data bus width and how many bits are in a whatever. I was disappointed there wasn't much in the fetch decode execute cycle in it, but overall this was a pretty great paper. So you probably would have worked out now that see the best paper that I did was also the last paper I did, and that was Maths 3, aka Stats and Mechanics. Well, if you don't know, you basically have two papers. One is the statistics side of maths, the other is the mechanics side of maths, and you're supposed to do one in the hour. It's 2 hours, sorry, 1 hour for each. Whenever I've done this question in mocks, this paper in mocks, sorry, I've always been absolutely dog shit at stats, but fine at mechanics. In fact, remember one mock, I literally got a higher score in mechanics than I did in pure, which was pretty concerning, but honestly, I'd say for both the stats and mechanics papers, it was really forgiving this year. Like, mechanics was just an easy breeze way through. Stats was a lot better compared to previous stats questions, mainly because I had a lot of chance to revise it. It was like over a week between this exam and the one I had before it. I remember being the last exam, right afterwards I went straight down to the pub to celebrate with my mates. See, there was a question on the large data set and stats that was way bigger than I was expecting. That kind of stuck, but no one revises large data sets, so I bet the grade boundary is going to be slightly lower for that, as they probably will be with some of the physics and computer science papers. But yeah, I did the maths during this exam. Well, of course, I did the maths because it was a fucking maths exam. But yeah, I worked out that I lost a maximum of probably 18 marks out of 100 marks, and it was all on stats. But overall, yeah, this paper made me feel pretty confident, and also it was my last paper, so I guess that kind of adds to the goodness of it in some way. So yep, that was every A-level exam I did in 2024, ranked from worst to best. Feel free to share how you found yours. And right now it's the summer holidays, so I get to go drinking, to the gym, applying for jobs, waiting for my fucking driving test because there's no cancellations in, making stupid YouTube videos almost every day before I hopefully get into uni. So yeah, there's nothing really else to say. So then lads, that's the end.